So I met my friend Bert, and we decided to do Dislocation Buttress up on Granite Mountain. There it is. This is a classic climbing area near Prescott, Arizona. And there's the route. It's something like 5 to 7 pitches. The approach was quite long, at least an hour and a half. We went up. It seemed like 1,000 feet. I don't know if it was quite that much. Finally got to the start of the climb, and I think the main word that comes to mind is remote. So there was no cell service. The last part of the approach to the climb was boulder hopping on really steep terrain. And you just had this sense of this is not a place where you want to get hurt. So we were being super careful, which maybe leads to the result here, which is, spoiler alert, we do bail on this climb. So here's me on pitch 1. We're in an area here called the slabs. And we're going to see really soon why they're called the swamp slabs. So there I am getting my first number 3 in, down pretty low. And of course here I'm following the rule that I want to keep 2 pieces between me and the hospital at all times. So I'm going to stop right here and get in a number 2 as well. So Dislocation Buttress, the guidebook says 5'4". That said, it felt stiffer than that to us, and Granite Mountain is a just notoriously sandbagged area. I had read that on multiple websites. So I reached out to a local guide after our experience here, and he said, maybe 5'7", maybe 5'8". Not super difficult, but definitely not 5'4". So if you go out to Granite Mountain, keep in mind they are old school granite grades. One thing that was in my mind here as I was leading this first pitch is, this easy terrain, call it 5'4", call it 5'6", whatever we're calling it, there are ledges everywhere. Just by the nature of this easier terrain, the fall zones are not good. So I found myself climbing, basically to a ledge and putting in 2 pieces, and then climbing to another ledge and putting in 2 pieces, trying to make sure I had that safety margin. And even though the climbing's easy, it's so dirty. Look at it. There's so many leaves. You felt like you might just slip out just based on stepping in a bunch of leaves. Look at that. Absolutely dirty. This is supposed to be a classic. I did notice that the pictures on Mountain Project were from 5 or 10 years ago, and it's just clear the route has not been seeing a lot of traffic. All right, so here I am at one of those ledges, and I made a mistake and decided to lead with a backpack on, just thinking it was going to be so easy it wouldn't matter. The climbing, it ended up being a little bit tougher than we thought, and having the backpack did not help, especially on leads. So normally we would have the follower carry the backpack, but made a bad decision here. So here I'm looking up and at this next these next few moves to the next ledge, and I'm thinking, no way, this looks 5-4. So so I want to make sure that I've got two pieces in here, which I do now before I try this move, and with with the backpack on, it did not feel secure. And had I fallen, these pieces would have stopped me from hitting the ground, but they would not have stopped me from hitting that ledge. And again, that's just the nature of moderate terrain or easy terrain sometimes. So here I go. This is what I would call the crux here of the first pitch. And you know, it's hard for me to say exactly what it was. I wouldn't call it 5-4 with my backpack on. It felt 5-8 or 5-9, but it probably wasn't that hard. Maybe 5-6 or 5-7. Let's see what you think of it. What made it certainly harder than 5-4 to me was this right. You see my right foot is on a pretty thin slab there. Did not feel very secure at all, but it was super fun. There it was. So there was the crux move on the first half of the pitch, or at least the part of pitch one I led. So what happens, the first pitch is about 100, maybe 120 feet. Pretty long pitch, especially if you're used to short sport climbing, or we do a lot of climbing in the dells where pitches tend to be pretty short. But I only made it halfway up the pitch, because one thing you do need to know about Granite Mountain is there are no bolted anchors, or at least there aren't on all the climbs I have seen. So, this is, if you're getting into trad and if you want to get into adventure climbs, this is something you have to think about, because you want to have enough pieces to build a good solid 3-piece anchor. And so I get probably 60 feet up on pitch 1, and I'm already pretty low on gear, and I want to have more than enough gear to build a solid anchor. So I went ahead and yelled down to my partner that I was going to go ahead and just build a belay right there on that nice ledge, and I did. That's when our problems really started, and I don't have footage of this, but my poor friend Bert starts following this pitch, and almost immediately his foot gets completely stuck in a crack. And I don't mean like a little bit stuck. I mean it was 5 or 10 minutes of him yelling and trying to get his foot out, and finally he just had to take his foot out of the shoe and then work on getting the shoe out of the crack. We posted about our whole experience on Instagram after, and Granite Mountain Guides was nice enough to respond and say something like, if you don't get stuck in a crack, and have route finding issues, which we do in a minute, your first time out to Granite Mountain, then you're a superhero or something like that. So it's an old school adventure trad area, overgrown, remote, pretty awesome, but very different than sport climbing. Um, and a lot of trad climbs, multi-pitch, will have bolted anchors, but again, that's just another interesting piece. Here I am placing a Wild Country number 5. This was the only stopper I placed on the route, which perhaps is why I ran out of gear. It's really easy to place cams and just keep going. Putting 120 centimeter sling on this to make sure I extend that placement. Number 1, to keep the stopper from coming out. Number 2, to minimize rope drag. Why do I have lockers on that sling? Because I have a million lockers. So why not? So yeah, this is where I end up building the belay. So this is about 60 feet up here. And now I'm going to bring up my climbing partner. I'm going to build a nice bomber 3-piece anchor in that crack right there. I'm going to have to clean it out before I do that. But that's just all part of the adventure. All right, so now I'm following. I've brought Bert up. Didn't get good footage of that. And now I'm following. So Bert, he led the I guess second half of pitch 1. I want to say pitch 2. I guess it was pitch 2 for us. And now we're sort of climbing out of the swamp, getting some great views. Bert, my climbing partner, is way taller than me, so there was a few placements that it was a struggle to reach. The second pitch was super interesting. It went up this huge V-notch. Just very unique terrain. All right, so here I am coming out onto Pine Tree Ledge. And what we found out later is that you can actually walk up to Pine Tree Ledge and just go around to the left. So this is where things really got interesting for us. We did not have a topo. We did not have a guidebook. We were relying on basically a topo someone had made and put on Mountain Project. And we just could not figure out where to go, which seems bizarre. So we're right there where the yellow line ends. And, we start to, we're getting short on time. There's a lot of issues there, but we end up saying, let's just go down, which sometimes is the smart move. So, yeah, there's this story. We ended up just walking to the left, getting down, and there was no regrets there. With multi-pitch trad, you're basically putting yourself into a survival situation once you get up high enough where it could be impossible to bail and go down. Certainly impossible to go down without leaving gear. Even if you start rappelling, you could run out of gear. So you want to be confident in the route, and we definitely didn't want to have an epic that day and get stuck up there or anything, especially without cell service or an inReach. So anyway, that was our first Granite Mountain experience, and it was awesome. Can't wait to go back. We're glad that we played it pretty conservative this time, but next time we will be back with a better game plan. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. If you made it this far, you're awesome.